See him yet?
That's because they're doing it by grade.
There he is. Damian. I know my programming. Not right in front. Huh?
You can't go.
You can't?
First one to sit down.
Good evening. Welcome. Yeah, this is going to be a tough evening. Bear with us all. First of all, I want to thank you all for coming tonight and being part of our special evening. This is kind of the pre-welcome to the welcome that's coming, but I just thought it was important to kind of set the stage for what's coming tonight. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to read this because it's too nerve-wracking and very emotional tonight, so I'm going to read, sorry. I'm going to start with a quote, actually. The first one is over here, way on the side. Change is inevitable, embrace it. When we found out that our school, this old friend and special place for many, was closing, it didn't take long for us to decide we needed to give our school a final send-off. An end-of-the-year program, but what to do? That was the big question. Quickly, ideas began to fall into place. We knew we didn't want to make this an emotional and sad event, but we decided to make it a walk down memory lane for us all, with a focus on how our world and this little school has changed since it opened in 1962. Listen carefully and you will hear all the changes. Next quote. Isn't it funny how day by day nothing changes, but when you look back, everything is different. The reality of the closing of our school is here. We've all had to accept this change. We decided the best way to deal with change is to remain positive. So, I have a couple more quotes for you, and we'd like to share them with you. We have obviously found truth and comfort in these words. So, even though some of us are going separate ways after the next couple of weeks, remember this. It's the moments together that change us forever. And growing apart doesn't change the fact that for a long time we grew side by side. Our roots will always be tangled. I'm glad for that. I think we're all glad for that. So, now let's begin our program. Let me set the scene. You are watching as a group of kids and Mrs. Kibbe are rehearsing for the final Fort Winnebago program. Enjoy the show.
Started. All right, so we have a program to present. Come on, quiet kids, come on. Get your places, let's go. All right. We have some of our youngest students here to give you a welcome. This is how the old one-room school programs used to begin.
Yes. Shirt's taken out.
We thank you for coming. Everyone here will remember something from the past. Listen carefully and think about how life has changed. Caring about our memories and sharing about our memories are important. Open your minds. We are ready to hear about changes. Many people enjoy this school. Enjoy our program. Here we go.
Don't fix his tie. Don't tell him. He fixed it.
Welcome. We are happy to see so many people here. These annual all-school programs were always important, but this year it is especially important. It will be the last one for Fort Winnebago. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for always making the effort to attend. Also, thank you for always coming to meetings, attending conferences, helping out with volunteering, your kind words, and all the great support you gave to this school. You know that our school is closing and that we are all going on a great new adventure next year.
Now, reading from the history of Fort Winnebago School Book.
Oh my goodness.
People first settled in this area about 170 years ago. These settlers began farming in this area around the Army Corps. Education was important to these settlers. Small schools sprang up in different areas around these early farms. The map shows where these early schools were located. Some of you might be living near these old school sites. Berry School at the corner of Clark and Donkey. Gates Mill School just past Lynx on the right side of Moran Road. Stone School on CM by Baptist Church. Garrison School. Rio Divine School, corner of CX and X, AZ Maltby, CM and Carroll Road, and Spicer School, here.
These settlers built schools close to their homes because kids walked to them. Kids might have to walk a couple of miles to get their school building in their area.
They walk to school in winter too?
Yes, there was no bus service for the first 100 years because they run schoolhouses. Now listen, we are practicing for this program.
As he was saying before he was interrupted.
These little one-room school buildings were the center of their social activities and their government. There were Christmas programs, card parties, box socials, picnics, and patriotic programs. The schools were the center of their lives.
A school in any one of these schools consisted of reading, recess, arithmetic, lunch and recess at noon, geography, recess, language, or spelling at the end of the day. The teacher taught each grade, even if there was only one child in that grade.
Country schools had one room. There was only one kid in a grade. There were a dozen or so kids in the school. Yes. The day worked like this. Reading was the first subject before recess. The teacher would call a grade like first grade to come up to the front of the room. They would have class, and then the second grade would be called up to have their class. Wow, that would be hard to have all the kids come up to the front. No, you see, there was probably only one first grader and one second grader, and so on. Only one kid in a grade? That kid had to answer all the questions? That's how it worked. Bummer. How embarrassing. The schools were like this up until about 1960. Then 50 years ago, America began to worry about the schools and the quality of education. You see, kids, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik in 1957, a satellite, and woke the United States up. Could the Soviet Union be ahead of America in the areas of science and math for their kids? People began to worry that the little country schools couldn't compete. A law was made for consolidation. All the little schools would be closed. The little schools in the area would be consolidated into a larger school that would serve the whole area. Members of the one-room school boards got together to start planning for central location where a consolidated school would be built. The new school would be called Fort Winnebago Graded School. Graded meant that there were combined grades like we have today, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, like that. That was 1962.
We have a program here. Now, can we start talking about 1962? 50 years ago, we want to imagine what it would have been like. We could have the people imagine too.
That is exactly what this program is about. Now, we want to tell the people to take a trip back 50 years with us. If they're older than 50, we want them to think back 50 years to 1962. If they aren't that old, we hope we'll be able to teach them about all the changes they've gone through. Let's go back to the script. Keep on to the practice. I'll sit and listen.
There weren't any DVDs, iPads, cordless phones, cell phones with texting, MP3 players, call waiting, caller ID, Xbox or PlayStation with high-resolution 3D graphics, and there was no giant screen TVs.
What? How did kids survive? How did they make it?
Most toys didn't move or make noise. There was no ATM to get your money from, no sports in high school for girls, and no safety patrol. Soda only came in glass bottles, not a can.
Yes, and listen to this. Absolutely worst of all, there was no satellite TV, so that meant no Cartoon Network. TV just had 3 Madison stations to choose from. Kids had to wait until Saturday morning to see any cartoons. You can bet that Saturday was a time where kids would gather around close to the TV in the living room to watch their favorite cartoon.
In 1960, there were no blow dryers, crock pots, curling irons, no copy machines, contact lenses, minivans, or disposable diapers. Snowmobiles were just becoming popular.
Computers were invented, but they were not in common use. Definitely no computer at school. If you had a question about history or science, you went to the library. You looked in a card catalog and found a book on the subject. There was no internet for a quick answer.
There was no email either. You had to write a letter and send it in the mail with a 4-cent stamp on it. Then wait 2 days for them to get it. Now, back to the program.
It says here, they only had one TV in the house, right? And it was in black and white? Yikes, this is unbelievable. You know what I think? Change is good. It sounds like there have been so many changes, and they all sound good to me.
Now you are understanding, but we are putting on a play here, and you are not part of it. Go back to your iPod and keep quiet, please. Going on with practice. Some TVs were colored. Color TV was just new. They watched Perry Mason, Alfred Hitchcock, The Twilight Zone, and The Jetsons, or Gunsmoke. In the news, they saw President Eisenhower, then the Kennedy election. Hawaii was the 50th state added. There were protests for civil rights, and hippies were seen everywhere.
There was no guide on TV. You had to look up a list of shows in the TV Guide magazine. Oh yes, and if you wanted to change the channels, you had to get up and walk over to the TV to change the channels. No remote control.
Puffy tees hairstyles were popular. All the teachers were dressed up. Men teachers usually wore suits or ties or a leisure suit. Women teachers always wore dresses until the middle of the 1960s. Then they began to wear pantsuits instead of dresses.
Get this, even worse than that, there wasn't any McDonald's, Hardee's, Kmart, Walmart, Culver's, Burger King, Wendy's, or KFC.
Unbelievable! I feel like passing out.
Maybe you need a snack. It says here, if you were back 50 years and you wanted a warm treat, you'd have to cook it on the stove. You couldn't use a microwave because there wasn't any.
Wow, all this is amazing. Things sure changed. I want change. These changes are good.
Kids had plenty of exercise, but I don't mean a planned workout. Just exercise. Exercise in living every day. There was exercise in growing the garden, doing farm chores, mowing the lawn, or playing outside. Even shopping in Portage was exercise because it was very different.
Spare me! Exercise? Now see, that is a great change.
Sounds like Bogan.
All stores were open in downtown Portage. Portage was a great place to shop. One night a week, stores were open. Friday, you parked a car and everyone walked around town buying what you needed in all the stores. There were hardware stores, clothes stores, shoe stores, or drug stores. When you went to the grocery store, you parked a little closer. There was always someone there to wheel out your cart full of groceries and load them right into your car. The stores were not open on Sunday then. Can you imagine?
No mall, no shopping on Sunday? What was Sunday for?
Church and visiting other families, silly.
Wow, I'll bet things were quiet.
Most of the kids in that first year of 1962 came from a family dairy farm. Cows were milked 2 times a day, so the kids had chores to help out with before and after school. Meals were served around the family dinner table. They were meals made from scratch with foods they grew in their garden or meat that was raised on their farms.
For toys, kids played with Barbie dolls, aggravation, operation, etch-a-sketch, and East Bake Oven.
Kids could call friends on the dial phone. That phone was in the center of the house. It was a phone with a cord on it. It was a party line. That meant that several neighbors' houses were connected on the same line. When you lifted the phone to dial, you might hear your neighbor talking. You would have to wait for them to finish talking before you could use the phone.
I just thought of something. That party line thing, that is kind of like today when you can hear someone talking on their cell phone right next to you. Yup, the old party line. We've got to get back to practice. Are you okay?
When you did dial, you might get a busy signal on the phone. There was no call waiting. They had no caller ID, so when the phone rang, you could meet anyone on the other end. And listen, when you left the house, you were out of touch. Or you had to find a payphone. There were no cell phones.
No cell phone? Help!
I think that was too much info for you. Go on, you'll make it.
There were no car seats for big kids. There were only car seats for babies, which were very poor, not safe at all.
What? Oh, please. No good car seats for babies? Change is really good. Change even saves lives. Go on and tell us what the school is like.
50 years ago, this land had the Spicer School on it. The little one-room school served grades 1 through 8. The school was moved to a new school was built on its place. There were 4 classrooms, a small office, bathrooms, and a larger all-purpose room, which was used as the cafeteria too. There wasn't any gymnasium here. Kids played indoors in the all-purpose room. One other outlying school had gymnasium 50 years ago. That was Caledonia School. The kids from here went to that school to compete in 7th and 8th grade boys basketball games, which were held after school with teams from these other small schools. The girls were cheerleaders.
There were metal desks with seats attached. In the back of each classroom, there were shelves of books. That was the library for each room. There were hardcover books for each subject, even spelling. There were workbooks that went along with the reading books.
In the central storeroom, there's a radio to share for all the rooms, and there's an educational program on science, music, or books. The music program is called Let's Sing.
There was a reel-to-reel tape recorder, a 16-millimeter movie machine, and a record player for 45, 78, 33-speed vinyl records. Remember, the records could scratch. A television set was brought to the school so that classes could watch educational programs on science, art, the news, and even math.
Let's talk about the food. All the meals were from scratch, nothing frozen. If mashed potatoes are on the menu, all the potatoes are peeled by hand, cooked, and mashed. And those desserts were great. The first cook was Mrs. Hazel Nyberg.
Milk came in big cans which were placed upside down in a cooler. At lunchtime, the milk was poured in glass glasses. Milk did not come in a carton.
In those first years of 1960s, no special teachers came out for art, music, and fine ed. Each teacher taught their own art, music, and fine ed. In 1963, the Portage School System took over. That was when Mrs. Jack Pease was sent out as the first fine ed teacher.
We didn't even talk about keeping the school clean. The first custodian was Bonnie Brown. The first secretary was Rose Roundy. The secretary remained for many years. She also drove one of the buses. Having a secretary was a great help because valuable teaching time wasn't wasted by having the teacher collect lunch money, keep attendance records, and other office work.
By the late 60s, educational ideas were changing again. The Portage District wanted to move both 7th and 8th grade into the junior high. The 8th grade went in first, and the 7th grade followed in a couple of years. The school is now a 1 through 6 school.
The 60s were pretty exciting. We didn't even mention the U.S. space program and how the United States went to the moon in 1969. There was the assassination of President Kennedy and later his brother Robert and Martin Luther King.
I just read something here that I think is memorable. It was a new TV show. It came out in 1969 and is still around today with a few changes. It was introduced for children. You know what it was? Guess. Sesame Street was an instant hit. This show was presented in a new, fast-paced form. Children only had to pay attention for a short time. Kids today are still enjoying the show, although some characters have changed. Bert, Ernie, Big Bird, and Oscar are still around. The most popular character, Elmo, was not there in 1969, but the show wouldn't be the same without him today. We now have some popular songs of the 1960s.
enrolled, the large gymnasium was added. You guys imagine this school without the gymnasium? Pretty nice. Art and music classes were brought out to the area schools. Remember, before this, it was just by ed programs. So, here are the 70s.
One change had the safety patrol program brought to the rural schools. The city schools already had the program. Those kids in town would stand guard at the street corners near their school. The program is now started at the outlying schools so that all sixth graders had the opportunity to go with the other in-town students to walk continuously at the end of the year.
My mom and Logan Zed are two of the many poor kids who went to Washington, D.C. on a sixth grade safety patrol trip. They have good memories from their sixth grade trip.
The classrooms were carpeted one at a time. The rooms had started with shelves of library books in each room. There was no central library. Some of you will remember the good old Swish program at school. It was supposed to protect your teeth by giving you fluoride. That was awful stuff. You took a mouthful of liquid and swished it around in your mouth.
Technology was just beginning to show up. Things like the pocket calculators and cassette tapes were coming into school. Life was changing with inventions of video games at the time.
My grandma Teresa, one of our bus drivers, went to school here in the 70s. She said that our music room was the lunchroom and gym back then. Her favorite food was cheese buns, and her favorite memory was going on the hill and planting trees. My grandma Teresa started driving the bus for Fort Middle School in 1983 and will drive for us until our last day of school at Fort next week. Changes at home were nursery, microwaves, disposable diapers, hamburger helpers, and more pleasant food tastes.
Nowadays, we're making interviews. The earlier college were found to make warm trails and places to run snow.
The game of Uno was invented. A new material made of foam started the invention of all sorts of Nerf toys. Other inventions of the 70s were instant coffee, Teflon, and cancer soda instead of bottles.
On TV, they watch shows like All in the Family, Roots, Jaws, Superman, and the U.S. Bicentennial Celebration in 1976.
On the news, we saw Nixon and the Watergate scandal, the end of the Vietnam War, inflation, and long lines against us.
Conservation and recycling were discussed. People began to conserve and recycle. Senator Gaylord Nelson from Wisconsin started a celebration of the first Earth Day.
In Portage, northern small buildings were being built by an old silo apartment. There were several stores inside that made all like storage bins.
At grocery stores in Portage, someone still pushed out the car of groceries and even loaded them in your car for you.
Girls basketball and girls volleyball were added in the high school. The indoor pool was built onto the Julia Roos Junior High. Girls sports teams were added for volleyball and basketball. Because girls sports were added, girls didn't need to go to the YMCA or YWCA to play sports, or a GAA program. That YMCA song was sure a popular song. Here it is as part of a medley of the memorable songs from the 1970s. Yeah.
Somebody's free.